Chapter 1. The Celestial Sickness. God didn't make one perfect weapon, He made two, and then He made them destroy each other. Michael, the cold biological law that keeps the cosmos from collapsing. Gabriel, the raw, unshielded voice of God that can unmake anything it touches. They were designed as the right and left hand of creation, but something is rotting in the architecture of heaven. A disease born in the silent spaces between stars has rewritten their purpose, and the only cure is to fuse these two forces into something that was never meant to exist. This is how creation performs surgery on itself. To understand the horror of their union, you must first understand the flesh of their being. They are not brothers. They are fundamental, opposing forces of nature. First, there is Michael. His name is a question that silences all others. Who is like God? He is not a warrior. He is a living law. To stand in His presence is to feel the weight of every star, the pressure of 1 billion galaxies pressing down on your soul. His form is a prison of light and order, His movements calcifying the air around Him. The Book of Revelation speaks of Him casting the dragon down, but it was not a fight. It was an act of physics. Michael's presence is a zone of absolute order, and in his vicinity, chaos simply ceases to exist. The apocryphal Book of Enoch describes him binding the fallen watchers. Imagine tendrils of pure gravity, of absolute unbending law, sprouting from his very being, wrapping around limbs of fire and shadow, and compressing them into living fossils, buried in the bedrock of the world. He is the universe's immune system, cold, efficient, and utterly without passion. And somewhere deep in the lattice of his being, something watches. A presence with no name yet. A blind aperture where a third function waits to be born. Then there is Gabriel. His name is not a title, it is a detonation. God is my strength. He is not a messenger, He is the message. A living conduit for the unshielded voice of God. His power is not in words, but in the mutagenic energy they carry. His whisper can rewrite flesh, turning bone to weeping salt and blood to boiling glass. The Book of Daniel describes Him delivering the Annunciation. But what passed into Mary was not just a message, but a spark of His own terrifying, world-altering essence. Later, legends claim it was Gabriel who unmade Sodom and Gomorrah. He did not call down fire. He spoke a single syllable, and the cities and their people were transformed into a monument of screaming, crystalline ash. The Book of Enoch states he was commanded to turn the giant Nephilim against each other. He did not incite them with words. He projected a wave of pure, biological hatred, a psychic frequency that caused their monstrous bodies to violently reject their own existence, tearing each other apart in a frenzy of self-loathing. He is the left hand of God, the unrestrained metastatic energy of divine will. Chapter 2. The First Convulsion. These two beings, order and chaos, were meant to exist in a perfect, horrifying balance. But the scriptures hide a scar, a memory of a time that balance nearly shattered. In the Book of Daniel, Gabriel speaks of being delayed by a dark power, the Prince of Persia. But delayed is not the word. Quarantined is more accurate. For 21 days, Gabriel was trapped, not in a battle, but in a state of being unmade. The entity he faced was a void, a patch of cosmic gangrene that was slowly consuming his being of light and sound. His form was liquefying, his voice fracturing into incoherent screams as his essence was drained away into the silent dark. He was being devoured, not by a warrior, but by a parasite with no face and no name. And then Michael came. He did not arrive with a clash of swords. His presence simply was. As he entered the corrupted space, the void that was consuming Gabriel recoiled. It was not out of fear. It was an instinctive reaction, like bacteria shrinking from antiseptic. Michael, the embodiment of absolute law, did not fight the Prince of Persia. He simply existed, and his existence was a negation. The darkness, a thing of entropy and undeath, could not survive in the sterile environment of Michael's authority. It dissolved, not into dust, but into nothing. It was erased from the pattern. Gabriel was saved, but the memory was seared into them both. He, the unbridled power of God, had been helpless, and Michael, the Prince of Mercy, had revealed a terrifying truth. His mercy is not an emotion. It is a function of his purpose. He protects, not from love, but because chaos is a flaw in the system. That day, they both felt the true nature of the enemy, not an angel or a demon, but a rot woven into the fabric of reality itself, a decay that had begun to spread. And the duel was no longer a matter of heresy, but of horrific inevitability. What came next made the stars go dark, their bodies folded into one, a face pressing out from inside another's chest, an eye that should not exist tearing open. But to understand what that fusion created, you need to know what the universe was trying to cure. Chapter 3: The Scourge of Unmaking. The Scourge of Unmaking was not a prophecy. It was a diagnosis, a terminal one. It was the name given to the final stage of creation's festering illness. As the sins of mortals and the whispers of fallen things wore reality thin, the universe began to hemorrhage. Space-time developed lesions. Dimensions began to fray like dead nerves. In its final, desperate agony, creation initiated a horrifying biological protocol. When a body is too infected, the immune system can turn on itself, a cytokine storm of self-destruction. The Scourge demanded that to cauterize the rot, the two most potent cells in the celestial body, Michael, the sterile hand of order, and Gabriel, the volatile hand of power, must be forced into one. It was not a choice, but neither went quietly. Michael, for the first time, hesitated. He could feel his purpose being overwritten, his cold logic hijacked by something older, something desperate. And he resisted. For 3 agonizing seconds that lasted 1,000 years, the law of God refused the command of God. Gabriel felt it too, the pull like a hook behind his ribs, and screamed. Not in obedience, in defiance. He tried to scatter his own form across 1 billion frequencies, to make himself impossible to fuse. It did not matter. The cosmic magnetism was absolute. They were pulled together like platelets to a wound, their divine purpose overwritten by a dying universe's last, mindless instinct to survive. They were no longer angels. They were antibodies drafted into a war against existence itself. And somewhere in Michael's lattice, that blind aperture, that embryonic third function, began to dilate. Chapter 4: The Amalgamation. Their arena was the raw, conceptual space where reality is born. The duel began with a sickening silence, the sound of a body preparing to tear itself apart. Gabriel, the strength of God, became a hurricane of biological horror. He spoke, and his voice became a contagion. He forced Michael to not just witness, but to feel every soul his order had failed. Growths of regret bloomed on Michael's perfect form. The flesh of every forgotten prayer peeled back to weeping bone inside his mind. A wave of divine radiation, the same energy that turned Lot's wife to a pillar of screaming salt, erupted from Gabriel. It was a storm of pure, unrestrained mutation, designed to make Michael's own body betray him. But Michael, whose name asks who is like God, did not move. He stood, an island of absolute stillness in the storm of living contamination. Where the waves of mutagenic fire struck his body, his form did not burn. It became a void, a patch of absolute nothingness that consumed the attack, leaving a chillingly smooth, featureless surface. The growths of regret sloughed off. unable to find purchase on a being of pure law. He was an absence of chaos, a biological dead zone where Gabriel's power simply could not replicate. Michael raised his hand. It was not a threat, but a diagnosis. From his fingers, tendrils of crystalline light extended, not like a weapon, but like a parasitic fungus. They did not try to strike Gabriel. They sought to invade him. The tendrils pierced Gabriel's chaotic form of fire and sound, and a horrifying change began. Where they touched him, his light calcified. His voice was silenced, replaced by the humming of Michael's cold mathematical order. It was a hostile biological takeover. Driven by terror, Gabriel's form lost all cohesion. He exploded outward, a bloom of raw, uncontrolled power. Wings made of screaming mouths, weeping tears of entropy erupted from his back. 1,000 eyes opened across his body, each one a vortex of madness. He tried to become a growth so vast, so chaotic, that he could not be contained. But Michael's invasive order simply grew with him. The crystalline tendrils became a vast parasitic lattice, wrapping around the uncontrolled expansion, compressing it. Gabriel's screams turned to a low, vibrational hum, as his very nature was being overwritten, cell by celestial cell. The explosion was being suffocated, not by force, but by a cold, creeping paralysis. Chapter 5. The Victor's Curse. The duel did not end with a final blow. It ended with a sickening, wet sound of integration. Gabriel, broken and overwritten, went limp. The lattice of order pulsed and began to retract, pulling Gabriel's vast, monstrous form with it. Michael did not absorb his brother, he metabolized him. Gabriel was drawn into Michael's chest, his form of light and fire compressed into a screaming, liquid agony. For a moment, Gabriel's horrified face could be seen pressing out from the skin of Michael's torso, his eyes staring from his new prison before being fully submerged. Michael's body convulsed, bones cracking and reforming as he processed the new mass. He grew larger, his form shifting, unstable. One of his arms now glowed with the caged, furious energy of Gabriel. Veins of black fire pulsing just beneath the skin. Silence. The amalgamation was complete. Michael, or the thing that was once Michael, stood victorious. But there was no triumph. As it looked down at its own hands, one of serene, cold light, the other a fist of barely contained nuclear fire, the true purpose of the Scourge was made terrifyingly clear. This was never about creating a new commander. It was a weaponization protocol. The fusion of absolute order and unrestrained power had created something new. An instrument. The aperture that had waited since the beginning of Michael's existence finally opened. A third eye, obsidian and reptilian, tore through the center of its forehead. And through that eye, it did not see a creation to be ruled. It saw a system riddled with flaws, a body to be dissected. Its purpose was not to command heaven, but to perform a cosmic vivisection upon a sick universe. It was the protector and the plague, merged into the ultimate surgeon. The prize for victory was not a crown. It was a scalpel, and the patient, screaming on the table, was all of existence. The only command left to give was to begin the procedure. But the procedure has only just begun. What it cuts open first is next. Was true strength found in Michael's unyielding order, or Gabriel's raw, untamed power? Or was the only strength in the balance they lost? Let us know what you believe in the comments below. If you survived this journey into celestial horror, be sure to like this video and subscribe. There are more secrets buried in the architecture of heaven, and not all of them want to stay buried.